Welcome back to Fine Home Talks. I'm here with Adam from KDF Trees. So thank you so much for coming on.
Yes, thanks for having me. I'm
Yeah.
excited to be here.
And you are a licensed arborist.
Correct. Yes.
Okay. Tell me what that is. A lot of people I know, but tell
Yeah.
our listeners, our viewers what that is, please.
So, an arborist in Connecticut, the license entails you to do any sort of tree pruning, and cabling and bracing, as well as like pesticides, spraying, plant health care, fertilizing, anything like that. So, unfortunately, I think there should be a license for the removal process as well because anybody can
Agree.
get a chainsaw and a truck and start removing trees, which is
It's the wild west of all the
it
things
is.
that happen in the state, in my opinion.
It's
There's a lot of micromanaging of certain industries and a lot of like hoops to jump through for
for sure.
certain people and
Yeah.
certain things. And then other things are like, good luck.
I know it's like one of the most dangerous,
Yeah.
most deadly jobs on the planet, and it's like anybody can do it. But the arborist license itself is so geared towards a lot. It's really geared towards like plant healthcare is what a huge part of it is. So like that's something that we don't currently really offer or do a lot of.
Yep.
We study up on it. We want to know what's out there for diseases and pests and stuff. But it's not something that we do currently. So you have to learn so much about it to
Yeah.
get your arborist license just to be able to prune somebody's tree
Yes.
when you can go remove the biggest tree in the country if you want for with no licensing and no
It's
education
insane.
or qualifications. So that's really what the arborist license is. It's not something that's like you don't go to college for it.
Yep.
They
Yep.
have the CTPA, which is the Connecticut Tree Protective Association, has a course that they put on.
Okay.
There's a few other like training things you can go to in the state, but theirs is really good. I took that, and they really set you up for the test. Like you go, there's like 10 or 15 classes that you go to weekly, and then they get you like the tree ID portion of it, the multiple choice. They really train you, and it was really helpful. But the test is hard. It's a really hard test to get. I know a few people that have it and have other qualifications and tests, and it's like I can't fact check me on this, but I want to say it's a 200 question multiple choice test that you have to pass.
Yeah, it's legit. Like you're
Yeah,
studying and you don't
and
know what
then
you're going to be asked and like the
exactly,
whole thing.
and
Yeah.
then once you pass, if you pass that portion, then you go to a tree ID portion where they walk you around like an arboretum and they ask you 20 trees and you have to
Whoa.
get again, don't fact check me. I think it's
No.
80 or 85%. So you have to get 16 or 17, I believe, correct. And then if you pass that, you have to sit down in front of a board of like two or three people, and they
Wow.
ask you like 10 questions, and you have to answer. And it's intense. It's
Who
like
knew? I
I
had
know,
no I mean I knew like what an arborist like
yeah,
does and like the general, but I had no idea
yeah,
that
it's a pain in the butt.
yeah.
Even the multiple choices, like a lot of it is again geared towards kind of plant health care and pests and stuff. So they'll ask you like one question about like what is this, describe something, and then you have to kind of decide multiple choice what it is, disease or an insect, and then you have to decide how to treat it. So if you get like
Wow.
one
Yeah.
question wrong, you might get the next two or three wrong.
Right, cuz it's
Because
leading. Yeah,
exactly.
yeah.
So
Yep.
it was tough, but it's nice once you have it. You have to do credits.
Okay.
There's
Yeah.
re-education every year. You have to recertify every 5 years, and you have to get at least 12 credits in that time period.
Okay.
So once you have it, it's not like you just have it. You have to keep renewing it.
So to clarify, just in order to take down trees in the state of Connecticut,
You need
you do
nothing.
not need to be an arborist.
Correct. You don't need an arborist. You don't need insurance. You literally don't need anything,
Okay. So
which
that's
is
terrifying.
it's scary.
Yeah,
Even
it
like
is. It is.
um to have like we have a couple of cranes. So to crane a tree, you don't need your crane license in Connecticut. To do
You're
anything else, if you want
kidding.
to pick up an air conditioner that says how much it weighs on it, you need a crane license. But to pick up
Come,
pieces of tree that
I can't.
you're making educational guesses because we do it daily and we're very safe with it, but you're making educational guesses of what a piece is going to weigh.
Right. Yeah.
And then
You're like,
once you
there's
have
no,
it,
right.
you're 100 feet in the air. It's not like
Right.
you try to pick something up from the ground and it's a little too heavy. You just
Exactly.
put it
You
back
can,
down.
right.
So the tree portion of everything in this state, for a state that is so like heavily regulated,
It's very
um,
regulated. I'm
it's
actually surprised.
it's kind
Yeah.
of the Wild West, like you're saying. So it's tough because then there's so many people doing it. There's so many like landscapers that'll I can handle that tree, so you don't have to hire a tree guy. And there's just so many people that are not qualified and not educated and not trained properly. And there's nothing regulating it.
It sounds the contracting world is so similar.
Yeah.
Right? Like you could pay money to the state, you get a license,
Exactly,
and you
There's even like a lot of people, there's companies that run around and they say they're fully insured and fully licensed, and they have like a home improvement license. Which,
right. So
if
like
you're not educating the client, they don't know better, and they'll have
100%.
insurance, they'll have liability insurance, but they won't have workers' comp, which for the tree work side of things is insanely expensive to have and to hold.
Yes.
And people don't realize it. They don't know.
I know from the contracting side of things that when anybody could just say, like, I have a license, and then you look up the license and it's real.
Yeah.
But there's no barrier to entry,
Of
right?
course.
Even it's actually, I guess maybe in the same way, you pay for the license and then that's all that happens.
Yeah,
like there's no competency test.
I
There's
know.
no test to like
That's why I
say,
wish-
do you know how to like hammer a nail?
I
Like,
wish they
it's
would
not
split
even-
up the arborist and have like a
Yes,
like a
separate,
totally general tree care one of
yeah.
like removals, prunes, cabling, all that stuff, and then like a plant health care side of things. And you should have to have the tree work, general tree care, to be able to perform general tree care. It's
you definitely
crazy.
should. The other thing though is that extra step that you've taken, the company has taken, is huge.
Yeah.
Because listen, I am certainly not. It's my husband's role in our relationship and our partnership to take care of the plants.
Yeah.
That is, I like to eat. I like to like benefit from these.
Yep.
I'm not the gardener. I don't, like I could handle watering. It's just not something that's my thing.
Yeah.
So to look at a tree, unless it's extremely obvious that it's dead.
Yeah.
But it's not always obvious.
Yeah.
Sometimes you look at a tree and it looks fine.
Yeah.
To a lay person.
Of course.
Right? And then you wouldn't know,
Yeah.
I need to call.
Or, I mean, a lot of times we'll show up at a job, or I'll show up to a meeting, and they have a dead tree that you look at, but then you turn around and they have what seems to be a perfectly healthy tree with a huge cavity in it or a split. But because there's leaves on it every year, they don't think of it. Which, in some circumstances, that tree is even more dangerous because it has its leaves, so it has a sail, so it's catching way more wind and everything than the dead tree next to it.
Yeah.
I mean, I get asked that weekly when I go to meetings, well, how long can this tree last? Or is this tree dangerous? And it's like, it's hard to say because, I mean, you've seen the storms we've had even lately. A lot of times you show up to a property and it's the alive tree that landed on the house. And you look to the right and there's a dead ash standing there because it had no leaves.
Right.
Maybe it lost a few twigs or a few branches. So just, I mean, an overall like inspection, unless you know what you're looking for, it's really hard to. I mean, I think all industries kind of have their thing, but definitely like you think you see, leaves.
Right.
And you think the
and
tree's
you think
happy,
it's
healthy.
fine. Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
And if you get a company that, here's the thing, just like every industry, we talk about it all the time. There's good and bad in every single industry.
Of course,
in that relationship of good and bad, I hate to even use that word. It's so simple, but
it's
there's
competent, not competent.
I love that. Thank you. Yes. But there's also like categories within that, right?
Yeah.
So you're competent, but then you're like the best of the best, or you
course.
have like, your subcategories
there's
within
a baseline, and then there's
100%. Yeah.
Definitely.
But when you're thinking about that, it's super important to realize if you're not doing your homework and you're not educated about who to pick.
Of course.
If you get the non-competent person out there,
yeah,
they're going to identify maybe a totally different amount, right?
Of course.
Which would benefit
or
them.
If they're really not competent, they're probably going to only identify what's easy for them to do.
What they can handle.
Exactly.
Right.
Yeah.
Which
I see that constantly too. I'll show up to a property where there's one that sticks out to me in Riverton that I showed up to, and the guy called us because we were an arborist and he wanted his like Japanese maple pruned.
Okay.
And when I got there was like clearly tree work had been done in the last few weeks. And right where he parks his cars, like along his driveway, was this huge dead ash, stone dead. And then behind his house was a maple that was also in really rough shape. It was dying. And that maple had like prune cuts on it, like somebody took off a few of the lower limbs, and then the ash wasn't touched. And I pointed out the ash to him. I said, like, you know, you had guys here, they had like trees falling in the woods far away from the house that they had just dropped. Like they definitely, they were not competent. I don't know who it was. I don't, you know, I don't like to talk bad about any competition, but it was like, even like in that situation, if you can handle it, like for us, we get calls for plant healthcare often, and I hate to just say no, so I find people that I can recommend. So in that situation, if you can't handle the big dead ash, come in and maybe say, hey, listen, I can take care of this. This is what I'm kind of, my strength is, but I have a guy, or I can at least recommend somebody. But this guy had no idea that there was a completely dead tree over where he parked his 2 or 3 cars every day.
And he spent good money.
I'm sure.
He spent good money to figure it out, and maybe who knows if the work was, you know, like needed or whatever it was.
Of course, yeah, because you can't see beforehand.
Right, exactly. But to not know and make an informed decision on exactly what needs to be done, because you'll have a different, not only you make a good point about the equipment that you have, but the knowledge in equipment.
Yes,
right.
Of course.
It's like, that's where the magic is. And it's really important to realize, like, guys, how many times did Dave and I talk about it all the time? Your home is your biggest investment. Yeah. Right? Definitely. It is. For most people, it is your biggest investment.
For sure.
And you want it taken care of. But again, you're going to spend the money anyway. You might as well get it done well and right.
Or, I mean, or, you know, the things that were falling in the woods, or the prunes that the guy pruned a dying tree. Maybe if it was a budget situation, like, which I always tell people, like, kind of triage, you know, high traffic areas.
100%.
What is more dangerous?
The one over the cars is going to be, that should have been
the dying tree shouldn't have been pruned because it has to come down at some point. So you're wasting your money doing that. So it's really the difference of, you know, I always try to educate. Every meeting I go to, I try to educate on what should be done. It doesn't always pan out. You know, there's plenty of times I get an email back the next week, like, you were wonderful, you were professional, all your suggestions were great, but Johnny in the pickup was half the price. So the guy that maybe would have came out and not even seen half the stuff that I pointed out or how to do it. Now the homeowner basically walked him around, had a new idea of what they wanted in mind. Which really, you know, sometimes like that, it irks, but it is what it is. It comes with all of it.
I completely, I've had it. I've even the real estate side, you know, you come in and I had a situation recently where I said the price is X. They said no. Lesson learned. I foolishly agreed to list it higher, even though I knew it should not be. Well, 6 months later, the price, they switched to a different agent. The price is what I said it should have been.
Come on.
And then the house sells. And I'm like, look at that. Except it wasn't but again, lesson learned. And then
I know
sometimes, you know, things happen for a reason. We just have to like wish them well. But it does sting sometimes.
When you try to educate, and
it does sting sometimes.
And then like you see him, like that's like me pulling up and seeing the job done how I thought it was going to be done. You see it listed for the price that you had thought. I'm like, told you so. Which in this market, I would imagine, is a common theme. People trying to shoot for the stars.
It is a common theme. It is big time. Big time.
We just bought and sold recently, and it went spectacular, but I was definitely worried about like appraisal when you know, with the offer, like sitting there with your fingers crossed, hoping it appraises.
Holding your breath.
Yep.
I know. It's tense. It's a lot, but
it's a wild time for you guys.
Yeah, it is. Yeah. What is something unexpected for a homeowner that you could maybe share? It could be a story. I know I'm putting you on a spot, but like something that
I would say a lot of it is probably going into like new, like first time home buyers or buying a new home. I see constantly, like in the spring, people will call us and they bought a tree in winter, or they bought a house rather in winter. And they have, you know, a handful or a dozen dead trees that they didn't realize. So I've done a few, not as many as I would like to, but I almost feel like a tree inspection should, you know, there should be a fee to have your trees inspected when you're buying a place, because people don't understand it can be a very expensive thing. Like we have a client of ours in New Hartford that we've worked for years now, and I swear he's not on a huge property. He's probably a couple of acres, if that. You know, it's a nice sized lot, and he's got he's had to have had 80 ash trees on his property. And it was like 10 years ago, before the ash pandemic, really, he had beautiful live trees everywhere. And now we've been back there, I mean, with the crane, with equipment for multiple days, multiple times, and we feel like we're like heartbroken to even charge him anymore, because it's like he's the nicest guy in the world, and it's like, what do you do? I mean, they're all around. He's got a playscape for his grandkids. They're all around the house. They're around the driveway. And it's
sure
like every year or two,
sure
he
they're
just
not
like
little.
No, they're big.
They're huge. Yeah.
He actually just had an alive maple break in a storm like a few months ago, and it's like he was like heartbroken because he only has a few maples in his yard. Everything else is like ash. So it was like
those pests. What is it called?
The emerald ash borer.
That's what I thought. Yeah, and they just spread.
Yeah,
once they
said, again, I can't fact check, but I want to say probably 8 years ago when it first got here, they had thought that within 10 years there wouldn't be any more ash left in the state. And it's rare that you see an alive one nowadays.
I had no idea that it was that.
Yeah.
Like I knew that they
nowadays,
were there.
I can't remember the last time I saw an alive tree. Like we go to do one, a group of them that are dead, and maybe there's one or two that have some sucker growth or a couple of thin branches, but to see one that's not affected, haven't seen it. Unless they're treated. Some people treated for them.
Okay.
But it was another thing, like, which I kind of educate people on. We don't treat, but really it's like, unless the tree means something to you, like it's, the staple tree in the front yard or the backyard, or it was planted in someone's memory. It's not a guaranteed treatment, and you have to do it so often that it's like, at what point does trying to save the ash tree? That's inevitable. Yep. If you miss a treatment or something, it's just so it's like wildfire.
It's just so pervasive.
It's
like it's almost,
you got to kind of pick your poison. Is it worth putting all that money into it or not? And the beech are the next trees that are really dealing with a lot. They have a lot of issues, disease, beech leaf disease, beech bark disease.
That's
seeing
new
those
for
are
me.
like,
I
those
had
are going to
no
be
idea.
Hopefully not as bad, but looking to be like the next ash.
So how does it spread?
Well, like the emerald ash borer got here from China on like a pallet, on like a wood pallet.
Yeah.
And basically they attack the ash tree, so they just go from one to the another to another.
And is the beech the same thing?
The beech is a disease that's spread by an insect, so it's basically the same thing. I mean, if you have one or two in your yard that look not great, the others are probably going to follow.
Oh man.
The beech bark disease, what's tough about that is, I mean, the ash you could tell right away. I mean, it was like night and day. You could wake up the next day and you would see bark on the ground from the woodpecker going after the larva, and the leaves would be gone the next year.
Wow.
Where the beech still, I mean, you can see a lot. If you drive around, you'll see a lot of beech like yellowing.
Okay.
So they're kind of a slower demise in terms of kind of what you were opening with the homeowner noticing.
Yeah.
They still don't look terrible to the naked eye, to somebody not looking for it. But a lot of them are like having stem failures, like they're breaking in half because they're kind of rotting from the inside out almost. So it's, I mean, the ash, you can tell when an ash is dying. They're brittle treated to begin with. The beech are almost failing without being like stone dead. So they're almost going to be more dangerous because a lot of people aren't going to notice until it's unfortunately too late. Yeah.
I'm going to have to like keep an eye out now. Like this is.
I have a few at our new property in the woods, a few big beech, and you could see from like the horizon, they're just yellow.
Oh,
like they're just on their way out. And you'll see on the trunk of the tree, there'll be big like blotches or it's once you kind of see.
I'm not happy that this exists, but I'm happy to learn about it because I like to learn new stuff, and I'm like, it gets me a little excited that I can like.
It's just a shame.
Look for it. It is a shame.
I mean, there's a lot of big, beautiful beech too.
Yeah. And it's true from a homeowner's perspective, like from an so you're brand new. Let's say you're brand new. An inspector's never gonna.
They don't look at the landscape. I mean, they'll maybe say like, "Oh, the mulch is pitched towards the foundation." You should get that.
Like trim your bushes,
or maybe you have
that kind of thing.
But you got some branches touching the roof. They might mention that.
Yeah, but other than that, and I've been on a lot of inspections in my life.
I'm sure.
And a lot of inspectors who also overstep.
Yeah.
Like they try to pretend they're also electricians, and you're like,
of course,
let's just stay in our lane here. But I've never had anybody.
No, I did one. A home inspector called me from a house in actually Roxbury, which is kind of like as far as we'll go.
Yeah.
And I went and, he said, we're doing the inspection tomorrow. Can you come up for my client? I told him
that's great.
There's going to be, for us, any estimates for work. So if you have a tree or a project that you want a price on, we'll come out and give you an estimate for free. But if it's an evaluation where you want my education and my skill set to come out and evaluate, we charge a small fee. And then if you go with us for the work, I'll put that towards your estimate. So it's not
that's like a great deal.
Yeah. So I did that with them. I went out and met them. We looked at a bunch of work. They weren't closing for a month or two. Suggested some things, and they ended up going with all the work. We're actually starting that project next week. But it really made me think, like,
want that inspector's name. Sorry to interrupt.
For sure,
but
I will.
Yeah, that would be really great, because that's amazingly responsible of that person.
I lied. It wasn't the inspector that called. It was the realtor.
Agent.
It was the realtor.
Yeah.
The inspector was there at the same time, and the client was coming up. They bought from New York.
Yep.
So he was going to be there that day, but it wasn't the inspector. It was the agent.
Okay. That sounds, that sounds.
But it was, I mean, it's smart. I mean,
so smart.
There's so many things that you look at. I mean, you look for rodents and your septic and all these other things that can also be expensive issues, but not trees. And it's like,
and what people don't also, 100%, you're right.
Yeah.
People don't also realize that rodents, squirrels, different animals could get into your home via the trees.
Yeah,
it is a highway. Sure. It's like 84 is just right
and
in there.
Even on the opposite side, there's a lot of times where we go to do a project and there is like maybe a tree that's dying or one that's a little too close to the house, and the homeowner will say, oh, well, we're selling soon, or we're going to leave in 2 years. So they have, I don't want to say a hazard, because if it's a hazard, usually they'll do it, but something that can potentially be hazardous in the future.
Yep.
And they purposely don't do it because they're selling. So now whoever's coming to buy the house doesn't know that they have that issue.
Yeah. Unless they're educated enough,
of
or
course.
It's disclosed, which tends to not happen, right? And then or they're just taking a gamble, right? Like flipping a coin, just hoping and praying that it doesn't happen while they're still there.
Exactly.
Stranger things have happened. It really, like, I don't know how many jobs you've been on, but like I've had crazy things happen where delays closing, we don't close. Like,
I'm sure,
and it did happen one time that I wasn't on the listing side, I was on the buy side, that we were delayed because there was a tree issue, and it was a detached garage. Luckily it didn't, like, it was a quick, everybody came together to figure it out pretty fast, so it didn't like kill the deal. But it could have, when you're in a rate lock situation, it's no
you
joke.
Only have that time.
You only have that time until you start buying more time, and it can get real expensive real fast. So okay, amazing. I'm just trying to think about, like, I asked an electrician this, like, what should people mess with? What should they not mess with? This is a fun little game.
It is a fun little game. It's hard because it seems like literally everyone you've ever talked to has done tree work at some point in their day, or in their life. Everybody says, oh, I used to do tree work, or oh, I cut firewood, or oh, I do this. So it's hard to say, but is it ever worth it? I mean, electricity obviously is dangerous.
Very
but
dangerous.
There's some stuff low voltage that if you mess up, you may not really, you're not going to end up killed.
You're not going to die.
A chainsaw is by far the most dangerous tool that you're ever going to have in your hands.
Yeah.
And it's really tough to, I mean, we have homeowners all the time that, I go to a meeting and they'll say, oh, well, those two little ones, I could drop those.
I can do those.
Don't forget it. And it's like, maybe you can, and maybe you will get it done safely.
Yeah.
But if we're coming to do the big tree anyway, I'm probably not even going to charge you for that, or it's going to be pennies on the dollar.
Right.
And even once, you can drop them, you're either going to cut it up into a million lunchbox-sized pieces that then we have to deal with, which is going to be way more difficult than if we cut them down.
Yeah.
Or you're going to spend a weekend of your time.
And potentially
the biggest thing in terms of what they should do is, if they're somewhat trained, if they know what they're doing and they wear the proper PPE.
Yeah.
We always, like, anytime we come to a house or a homeowner says they're going to do it, the first thing I ask is, do you have chaps?
Yeah.
Chainsaw chaps. Because, I mean, we're professionals. We do it every day.
Yeah.
But complacency kills. So, we've all had, I've been wearing chaps. I mean, we wear chap pants every day. Knock on wood, it hasn't been anytime recent, but I've cut my leg with chaps on and it saved my leg.
Yeah.
We have other employees that have done it.
Oh, yeah.
And we do it every single day.
Yep.
So it's really, I mean, a lot of people are far too confident with what they can do.
They are.
I mean,
they are in most areas of their lives. I would say, honestly, like, just be like, I could do that. Like, I've watched HGTV and be like, oh, I mean, I know better. I don't even like the channel, but it looks real easy on TV.
It does. Of
Most
course it does.
things
And
look
when you see a
easy.
professional do something, it looks easy. Of course it does.
It
They do it every day. They
should
have the
look
right
easy.
tools. They have the right equipment. If it doesn't look easy, you maybe hired the incompetent one.
Yeah, 100%.
But I don't want to sound like foolish and say they shouldn't do anything.
Right.
Because I'll try to replace an outlet in my house and I'm scared to death of electricity.
Yeah.
I can replace a faucet, or I'll try to replace a faucet. So I don't want to say don't do anything. But if there's any doubt at all, we have a line at work. If there's any doubt, there's no doubt. Like if we think we could drop this tree, but maybe we should put a rope in it. If there's any doubt, there's no doubt.
Yeah.
So if you have any doubts at all, it's not worth it.
It's
because
really not.
one mistake and it could very easily be fatal.
Yeah.
I mean, same thing, like, not to degrade any other trades, but like a plumber, if you mess up, maybe you flood your house. It can cost you a lot of money, but chances are you're probably not going to die.
Yep.
The tree work side, it's just so dangerous. It's so dangerous. It can be so fatal, so fast.
So fast. And it doesn't even have to be, like there's for whatever national commercial, it's like you've fallen, fall down and you can't get up. But the ladder, that whole thing, I think it's like a gutter commercial for the gutter guards or something. But it's no joke. To clean up. Yeah. And it like people aren't, to your point, they're not really thinking. Yeah. They're very confident in their ability.
And maybe 8 times out of 10 it does go well. So it's almost worse when it goes perfect, because then they build more confidence.
100%. Yeah.
I mean, we've had multiple clients. One of our oldest clients, we've worked for him a couple of times, and then he never did his own tree work again because he crushed his brand new truck with a tree. And we've had another client that we did some tree work for.
Hurts.
He called us on a Saturday. He was trying to drop one. It ended up on the power lines. And we had to go rescue it off. So it happens all the time.
And to that point, it's not just getting hurt.
Yeah.
Which is enough.
Yes. I mean, that's obviously worst case scenario.
Yeah. And
it could be,
or like, you don't come back from it. Like, number one, you could die. Let's be clear. 100%. Things can fall on you. You can fall off of things, and that can go real bad real fast.
Definitely.
But to your point, if you don't have control over the thing that you're dropping, and it will
know
just
what you're doing in terms of
you have no idea.
Cut,
you have no clue.
I mean,
no clue.
Very fast, it could just go wherever it wants.
Yeah.
And then you have no control.
Yep. Yep. On a pool, on a car.
Of course.
On your home, obviously.
Yep.
Power lines. Not a great thing.
No, not at all.
Not a great thing.
Not at all.
What's something unexpected about your profession? Is there anything that people wouldn't?
Unexpected. That's hard to say. I would say maybe somewhat unexpected in terms of a hiring process, like hiring us or hiring a company, is really a lot of our rates and everything have to do with access.
Okay.
So we see constantly like new homes being built or people landscaping differently, and they close off like all access to their backyard.
Interesting.
Which, I mean, they may have a huge backyard and they think like, oh, it's wide open, but you can't get there. So you need to bring in specialized equipment or use a crane to go over the house. So I would say that I'll always try to tell people when they're renovating their front yard or renovating this, and I want to put a garden here, and it's like, well, make sure you leave 8 or 10 feet somewhere,
a water feature or something. That's a really good point.
There was one we did a job in New Milford that had literally zero access. It was on Candlewood Lake, and we had to bring in this special piece of machinery for 2 days, and they were redoing the front, and the lady was like, oh, we're going to replant, we're going to have this all huge garden, but we're going to do stone instead of mulch. And I said, like, I'm not a landscape architect, but maybe at least around the right side, like, put a few pots or put a couple of boulders even, so it doesn't look like an access way. It's something that
can be moved.
Because I mean, you can end up costing yourself thousands and thousands of more dollars.
That is a really good tip.
Yeah. Same thing with like septics. I mean, you see a new house built, or maybe the only way to get in is over the septic, and it's like you have this wide open area, but it's all septic.
Not any way to get in anymore because
depending on who you hire.
Yeah, true. Good point. Another good point.
I ask that every meeting. Do you have septic or underground fuel tank and most people go, oh, no one's asked me that yet. And it's like, well,
that's terrifying.
It is.
Yeah. Let's talk about why. Some people don't even know what we're talking about.
A few reasons. septics are underground. They have tanks and they have leaching fields. So very simply, you could back a heavy piece of equipment across a leaching field or a tank and just break it.
Yep.
So now a few $1,000 tree job could end up costing your insurance $30,000, $40,000, $50,000.
100%.
We use cranes often. You could not know where the septic is and set your crane outrigger up on a septic tank, and it may be fine. It may set up fine. It may even work for half the day. And then when you take that one log pick that you reached out over a house, and the tank ends up giving in, you can end up with an entire crane on a house.
Yep.
So it could
could
bad.
go bad real fast,
Yeah.
and people don't think about how the construction of their septics are.
I know.
Some people
You
don't
always
even
get,
know
I
where
drive my
they are.
pickup truck over to the yard all the time, and it's like,
when people say this,
your pickup truck is a tenth of the weight that we're going to bring in.
and they shouldn't be doing that
They should-
anyway.
yeah,
Truth,
no, they
that's the truth. It's like
Exactly.
you should be avoiding your septic system, the fields, the
100%.
leaching field, the
Even if
box.
it's not going to break it, it's not going to, compaction, it's not going to work as properly. You should be off it. 100%.
You should be off of
but
it.
you hear that? I hear that constantly. Oh, I drive on it all the time with my pickup truck.
No problem.
And it's like, the only way if it's a tank, we're not doing it. Period.
Yeah.
If it's a field, we have a small piece of machinery. It's like a small bucket loader,
Yep.
articulates with turf tires, that probably doesn't have much more impact on the ground than a heavy zero-turn lawnmower.
There you go.
But even that.
Yeah.
I'll say we're going to avoid it if you're going to write on a piece of paper and sign that.
Right, that you're
any
not
damage, 'cause
liable.
it's-
Right.
Even what if it's broken before you get there? We have that all the time. We had another project that comes to mind in Bristol where this guy had a golf course lawn. It was like he didn't want a blade of grass bent out of place, and we matted with mats a crane all the way into his backyard. And then originally our plan was to basically we came in, we did a few trees, came in a little further, did a few trees, and we were going to drive out the other side. And there was a propane tank there. And
Okay.
when we were about to start driving out, we asked him, do you know where it goes? Do you know where it is? No, but it should be fine. And we're like, okay, well, we need to sign something.
Yeah.
And he's like, well, I'm not going to sign anything. And the crane operator at the time, it's actually the company that we bought. He was like, well, I don't know if the tank is broken now.
Right.
So I'm not going to. So we had to K-turn them on a golf course lawn with mats that are 100 pounds a piece, basically, to get them out the other way. But that's another thing. You don't know if it's broken beforehand, and you're just the one that's going to get blamed for it.
100%.
And then it's your word versus theirs.
Yep.
So we
Without
try
a
to
doubt.
just avoid it at all costs.
I don't blame you.
Because it's just a headache you don't need.
I talk about septic systems all the time.
Yeah.
And try to educate people about the use of them.
Of course.
But both inside of your, the actual system, everything you flush goes down. But also, again, what people don't realize is sometimes the as-built isn't perfect. So if you haven't had that inspected, you might think that it's here and it's not.
Yeah.
It's 30 feet this way because, someone was a little tired or asleep on the job.
You see the drawings. I've never seen a drawing that I'm like, oh, that makes sense. There's squiggly line that says 30 feet is double the length of the one over here that says 60 feet.
Yeah.
And I've never seen one that you could trust.
Yeah.
Most people, there's plenty of jobs I get to where they go, the septic's right here. That's where they come every couple of years and pump it out. I was like, well, what about the fields?
The fields.
What? What do you mean the fields? And it's like,
I can't tell you how many people have no idea that it's more than just one little box that gets pumped.
Oh, well, I think it goes there. I was like, well, I need to know before we come.
From an inspection perspective, I can't tell you how many times I tell my buyers, we're not going to get 90% of the septic inspectors that you might call.
Yeah.
Here's the list that has the cameras that actually snake through the fields so we can see every single thing and know that nothing is collapsed, nothing's broke, it's clear.
And where it is. Yeah.
100%. Yeah.
It's crazy. So that's back to just educating. Every meeting I'm trying to educate on.
Sounds about right.
It's just educate.
Yeah.
And hope that you stand out enough that if you are a little more expensive than Johnny in the pickup truck, they realize why.
Yeah, and you're making a name for yourself. I'm seeing your signs.
Yeah.
And we're customers as well. So we're sold. And I just want to say thank you so much for coming. To wrap it, I just want to ask you what your favorite part of your house is.
Favorite part of my house? That's tough.
I know.
Like favorite room or just favorite part overall?
You could take it however you want to go.
I would say at the new house that we've only been there a little over a month. I would say it's the patio.
Nice.
Yeah.
Outdoor space.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
I would say it's the
vibe.
patio.
Cool.
For sure.
Cool. Thank you so much.
Thank you for having me. This has been a blast.
And you've been amazing. I was throwing you some real zingers, and you were able to keep up with me. So I appreciate that.
Of course.
Yeah, thanks for your time. Where can people find the company? Where do you work? Tell us all that fun stuff.
We're based out of Torrington. We'd like to stay 30 minutes-ish outside of Torrington. We'll go anywhere.
Litchfield County
Litchfield County, basically. We'll go like Simsbury, Avon. We'll go literally anywhere, but it's just we have to charge shop to shop.
Yeah.
Of course. So a lot of times, I mean, we get people that call. We've done jobs as far as like Greenwich, where we stayed in a hotel because they wanted to use us.
That's cool.
It is cool. It is fun. So we'll go anywhere. We like to stay kind of within 30 minutes. I'm always honest. If somebody calls from far away, before I even go for the meeting, I'll say, listen, I don't want to waste your time or my time.
Right.
You know, if you're 45 minutes by car, you're an hour by our trucks. So you're going to spend 2 hours of your day paying as if we were there working for those 2 hours. So, you know, if you want to use us, I have no problem coming out and giving you a price. But if you're just looking for like the cheapest price, or you want to get it done more efficiently, probably finding someone more local. So that's kind of where we're out of. To find us, we are, KDFTreeandlandscape.com is our website.
Great.
Just KDFtree.com works as well. We have a Facebook page that I kind of update. I try to do it daily.
Yeah.
Just kind of like what's going on with us. But that's our two biggest things, really, just the website and the Facebook.
Love it. Well, thank you so much again for coming. And I appreciate you and your company for the work that you've helped us with, but also for coming on and educating everybody. So this has been great.
We'll have to do it again.
Yeah, cool.
Awesome.
Thank you.
Thank you.